I can say the story, tell the same story in France or in America or somewhere, but it's your story. So I'm very happy and I'm very honored to be here today, and thank you for having me.
So, and were you able to see any particular, or be around any particular battle at that time in April when you were here?
No. You know, when you go to a war, it's sometimes very difficult to see the battle. In Vietnam, for instance, you had to seek action. In Bangladesh, well, the battle I came after battle, in between. Kushtia was retaken after I was there. It's very moving, you know, it's like a river. It
back and forth.
You don't know. And it's very difficult to be at the right time in the right place. But it's always a place where you have displacement, destruction, death. It's always the same story. And whether you see it and whether it's happening under your eyes, what you show, the ruins, the refugees, the fighters, it's a symbol of what happens in a war. And everything that is behind it carries a fantastic weight.
So tell us a bit more about some of the iconic images. I mean, you said a bit about it, the bows and arrows, but also the usual question about the, you know, one person.
Yes, that's amazing.
But also others. I mean.
Others, but he wasn't the only one. But that young man is walking briskly. You know, he's turning a little bit his head, so you see his face, but you see his back, and you see, you know, his step, how he's moving on, and he's carrying an old Lee Enfield 303 rifle slung across his back, and he has a little bag with him, a wicker basket and a canvas bag, and you can see what energy and what will he has to walk towards his combat unit. Obviously, he's going to join. And he wasn't the only one. There were many of them. And they all had the same very rudimentary equipment. Also dressed, you know, bare-chested, wrapped in a lungi. Some were barefoot. So that was, of course, extremely striking as well. And the refugees. On foot, horse carts, by train. But all of them had left behind what made their lives, their homes, their villages, you know, the land they were tilling, and they were all moving towards an uncertain future. Some of them were for years probably in displacement in refugee camps. And that's where, you know, I ask myself when I see these children, mostly the children, I say, what has been, you know, their lives since then? But you don't know. But you can see on their faces the fear in some of their faces, because they know that they're fleeing massacre, and then they're leaving their country, their own country.
There's an image with black flags along the road. Tell us a bit about that. What was the flags for? The
flags were put up on bamboo poles in protest of the massacres that had taken place in Dhaka a few days before. A young student, I think I told you, came on board, and he said, you know, about the massacres around him, of students, professors, women. So that was in protest of the massacres.
And in contrast, there's this very bright, colorful image of a lot of young people holding a small Bangladesh flag.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Yeah. How did that happen? And
yes.
Tell us about the flag as well.
Well, the flag, as I said, large crowds gathered in the railway stations when they knew that we were going through, and we stopped, of course. And these men came and presented me with a flag of Bangladesh, on which in those days you had the outline of the country. And they gave it to me. And today, this flag is exhibited in Musée Guimet in Paris in a showcase, along with the photographs, the same that are exhibited here. And it's very moving for me as well to see the image of the people who gave it to me, and then to see it there 50 years later. And I kept it very preciously. I never mislaid it. I knew exactly where it was, and I knew exactly where to get it in one of the drawers of my work table. It was always there.
It wasn't in the set of questions, but I'm very curious to know that how did this all come about? I mean, the rediscovery, and how did that happen after 50 years?
That happened completely off chance. The Rajib and Nadia Samdani Samdani Art Foundation were, I think, preparing to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the liberation of Bangladesh and of Bangabandhu. And they heard that I had, one picture had been seen, a color photograph of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So they got in touch with me and started looking in my archives, and I found those pictures I had taken of the first Awami League Council in April, held in April 1972. They were amazingly preserved because they were preserved in good condition. We don't have the same change in temperatures that you have here, but still. And so they are here. They're very vivid colors and very different moods of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And then Rajiv and Nadia asked me whether I had other photographs of Bangladesh. And I said, yes, I was there a year earlier, and I, went into Bangladesh in April 1971. So that's how, it all started. And I'm very thankful to them and to CRI for helping all this to happen and for my being here today.
So thanks to Samdani Foundation for rediscovering Anne de Henning. So taking a cue, you were talking about Bangabandhu, and we do have two sets of images here. One, a set from 1971 and then post-1971 about Bangabandhu. And how did you know about that, and how did you decide on the time? Tell us a little bit about the background of that particular visit.
Well, it seems I'm always next door to what's going to happen. So, I was like in Kathmandu when I heard of what was happening in Bangladesh, and I was in Calcutta when I was told about this large, important meeting with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So I decided, of course, to fly to Dhaka, and I thought I would want to see the country as an independent country. And
so this was in 73, 1972?
72, yes. Okay. And of course, I wanted to see the man who had led his country to independence. So I went to the meeting. There was a huge crowd, very, very large crowd, very attentive, very concentrated, very, listening to Bangabandhu. And I was very struck. I was struck by his charisma, by the vigor of delivery of his speech, and by the way he could change mood. Then he would sit down, and I liked the way he was sort of course, listening intently to what was going on and seeing what went on, but filling his pipe with tobacco, smoking his pipe, taking notes, and then standing again and again, carrying.
It seems you captured both kind of moods in your images.
Yes, yes. I like that.
And were you able to actually speak up to him and have you exchanged some?
No, actually, had I been a journalist, writer, I would have probably, asked him a few questions. But there I was very impressed. I didn't approach him. But I got very close, as you see.
And of course, we see some of the other leaders who were beside Bangabandhu during the war, who supported and assisted and who were there with him afterwards as well. So some of them we see here. Yeah, it's Tajuddin Ahmed, Dr. Islam,
and the bad guy.
And the bad guy.
And the bad guy.
And the bad guy. Kandakar Masak, we all know about him. So yeah, so you were here for a very brief time at that time?
Yes, I was here for a very brief time.
Right.
I was doing some work in Calcutta, but I wanted to come here to see him and to see the country, a free country, a new country. Because when I left Kathmandu a year earlier, knowing the history of the, South Asia, seeing the geography, India, both Pakistan, you knew it was coming to a turning point, and you knew, history was in the making. And that's one reason also I didn't waste time, and I thought something major is happening, and I wanted to be there. And the result also was Sheikh Mujib giving out the speech a year later. So I wanted to be there.
That was also part of the history in the making.
Absolutely,
in 1972, organizing and getting the country forward again.
Yes.
So that's interesting. So you did have, you had your photography in Vietnam as well. So there was sort of one part of your work has been to do with wartime photography, but also during peacetime. I mean, in your career, you have done photography around peace building as well, say in Palestine, in other countries also. So are there special features in terms of when you're actually doing photography during wartime, or, you know, how do you capture what you want to capture?
Well, wartime, besides Vietnam and Bangladesh, I didn't return to war. I'm not a war photographer. Those events were important for me in my youth to find out also what was going on, to document these wars. It was in Vietnam, the protests had started. In Bangladesh also, it was the outcome of a long time, you know, of search or seeking independence. But then I turned to other subjects, and I'm interested in street photography, portraits, architecture, and still today I can switch from one to the other. And photography is always about capturing a moment, a mood, about a very quick instant. It makes it unique, and it makes it also, you keep it, you preserve it. Little did I know when these photos were kept in my archives for 50 years, little did I know that they would become history. You know, a news photo had a very short lifespan. Today, no, because you have the internet, you have image banks. So you can go and search 1971, 1945, you'll get everything you want. In those days, no. The pictures, the photos, the text, they were published, and they were forgotten. It was in a newspaper, in a daily, or in a weekly, or in a monthly, and finished. So people don't realize that it had a very short lifespan. It disappeared. And then 50 years later, it reappears at history. That's what makes it interesting. When you're young, you don't see things changing. You think they're going to stay as they are. And then you look at the pictures you took a long time ago and you say, oh, God, it has changed. It's no longer, it's not the same world. So that's what happens also with photography. You preserve an instant, a moment in time, a moment in the life of someone, and you preserve it forever. Whether it is seen by family members or it comes out as news again or history, but there is something about photography which is there's something sort of magical. You take that image, it's there forever.
In the audience, there are also photographers as well who are clicking away. So, are you still doing photography? On what kind of camera do you use? What are you sort of working on these days?
They don't need publicity, but I use Nikon. I have an excellent lens, a bit heavy, but I still use it, of course. And
You're still working?
I'm still working. Of course, you never stop. It's like painting. It's like art. Why should you stop as long as you can do it physically? So.
Any kind of choice on black and white or color or
I've switched to color a while ago, but I like black and white photography. But I started shooting in color when I started shooting in the Arabian Peninsula, because the scenery was stark. It was the sand, the sea, very little vegetation. And then I realized that one day I was shooting in the desert, and there was this sort of palm tree standing out, but it was zinc and it was red. And I thought, if I do it in black and white, it'll look like a palm tree. If I shoot it in color, it looks like a red zinc palm tree. And everything, the color that was added in this part, of all the countries, you had to shoot it in color, otherwise it didn't come out. And it was part of the mood also. It was, and you know.
That's exactly what we also see here as well. I mean, like the 71 images are in black and white. There's certain different kinds of mood there, of course. But
it goes with the mood,
Exactly.
When I saw Sheikh Mujib and, with the video,
vibrant
I was
colors.
carrying black and white film. I have a few black and white shots, but I thought, no, this doesn't go with the mood. You have to adjust with the mood. That's why now I shoot in color.
So we'll now slowly move on to the audience here.
And my name is Nosher Rahman. I've got two very quick questions. Clarity of your recollections is quite remarkable. Is that specifically around your trips to Bangladesh, or do you remember most of the events around momentous events that you photographed with the same clarity? That's the first question. Second is, the 70s was obviously a very analog time. Do you remember when you heard the news of the assassination first time?
You photograph a lot of places and you spend time, or you come for a specific event. You don't always go back to these places. Like Bangladesh, or I photographed it, throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and then you will do other subjects, other places. Maybe an event will bring you back. Look, I'm here, I'm back. What brought me back is the celebration of the 50th anniversary of independence and Sheikh Mujib's, celebration, commemoration. So sometimes there is something, a specific event that will bring you back to a place where you have been to a long time ago. I was shocked. It was, of course, everyone was shocked. It was something that was, stupid to say unexpected. A murder, assassination is always unexpected. But it was a shock because after seeing him, and it was so short time after he had led the country to independence that you could not imagine that this would happen so quickly.
This is Purimal Palma. I come from the Daily Star newspaper. So you were in Bangladesh latest in 1972, and now you're here. So to Bangladesh, you're visiting. What is your impression? The Bangladesh that you saw in 72 and the Bangladesh that is here now you're visiting?
Well, I arrived yesterday morning, so after 50 years being away, so it would be very difficult. What I see is, of course, development, a large city, flyovers, buildings. But what struck me most is that I arrived on Victory Day. So I wanted to photograph that, and I went in front, on the avenue in front of Parliament House, and I was able to take photographs of people strolling, dressed in green and red, women with flower wreaths. That's a sort of consecration 50 years later of what I saw and witnessed in 1971, 1972.
My name is Christina, and I'm also a photographer. My question to you is, when we take pictures, we sort of look for something. We sort of look for maybe for a look or for an emotion. So I just want you to say that during the victory, what you were searching for in your pictures, and what the people you took photographs of, what were you searching in them? Was it a victory, or what was it?
Well, the picture is about the photograph, is about capturing a mood, capturing the personality of someone, showing, documenting, conveying. It's a chance because it's something that you can see. You can interpret it the way you want, of course, like some writing somewhere sometimes. But it's a way to make a moment in time unique. So that's what I like in photography. And of course, it's about capturing the mood of whether it is a place or the personality of someone or a street of an event.
Yeah. Let me welcome you to Bangladesh, and freedom fighters here who participated in Chuadanga, in Kustia, exactly the time you were there. We were not lucky enough to meet you, but at least 10 of us are here who participated in the attack on Pakistan Army in Kustia, which you saw they had retreated at that time. And some of them are wounded, some of them are great health, some of them very poor health. Introducing my friends here, Mahbubuddin Ahmad, Bir Bikram. We fought together in the war. My name is Tawfiq Elahi Chaudhary. I was a small freedom fighter during that war too. Then Hannan, he was in Kustia war. He comes from Chuadanga. Dulal, also, they all fought in the Kustia war. And then Sattar, he fought in Kustia war too, both of them, other than Mamun. So I thought this is a special occasion to let you see
you,
how these people are faring now.
Salute to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two questions. I have seen in your photographs pictures of Vietnam War, where the American army dressed up like a professional army, going with a bullish attitude, but they lost the war. In Bangladesh, I'm sure I would like to hear the people were very ordinary. They didn't have any of those weapons to give confidence that this war can be won. So what was your impression? Did you see anything special among these Bangladeshi? They are not soldiers. Basically, they were ordinary people that you came here. And were you certain that we'll be able to make it to independence, victory? Thank you.
Well, no, Bangladesh, I was in Vietnam, modern weaponry. I was here, and you had the basics going down to bows and arrows. Those were the two only places that witnessed, a war situation. And obviously, Bangladesh was the only one where I saw people with such elementary equipment, military equipment. That's why everywhere we went, the young people were asking for modern military equipment. But this showed the courage and determination of the people. And there was no end to it. That's why, you got liberated in the end.
Thank you very much for giving us, I would say me, because I am a freedom fighter because they are all freedom fighters. I and my friend, we have had the opportunity of fighting the whole of the War of Liberation in a particular area which is called Southwestern Command to begin with, and we ended up from Kustia to all the way down to Khulna. And we had the singular opportunity of having destroyed one of the fiercest contingents of Pakistan Army by bamboo sticks. You believe it or not, you go to Kustia, you go to Chuadanga, you go to Jinaida, and you go to Meherpur. It's the same story. People were fighting with 303, whosoever could get hold of it from the policemen around, or were fighting with bamboo. And believe me, the contingent known as 27 Baluch Regiment, they are supposed to be a motorized unit, 10 times stronger than a normal infantry unit. They were 200 in number, and they had all firearms including long-range artillery. They fired on us. We did not fire on them. We had only 303. We could not resist them. But the entire people was so much united in their heart of hearts that they fought them and killed all of them. Nobody could escape. Only one was taken prisoner, I think with whom you have talked. He was also made prisoner by me and sent to Chualanga, and then to Meherpur, and then to India. So these are... that's what I'm going to say. Our heart was mighty because we had the might of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He told on 7th of March that from today, not directly saying Bangladesh is independent, but he said from today, Bangladesh is economically independent, Bangladesh is politically independent. Do not let any of our enemies walk out of this country without a fight. That's what he said on 7th of March.
I'm Barrister Nadia Chaudhry. As a first-hand witness of the 1971 war, and coming back now to how little the world really knows about Bangladesh's rich history, the UN still hasn't recognized the 1971 genocide. If there was a message that you could give out to the world, being a first-hand witness, what would it be?
Bangladesh war, we have been talking about it, that it's not internationally recognized, the war, and the genocide that took place at that time. It's nationally recognized now. There's a particular day, 25th March, described as the National Genocide Day. And of course, Bangladesh observes the International Genocide Day on 9th December. But the Bangladesh war has not been recognized internationally as a genocide. So is there a particular message that you would like to convey? This is our demand, but from your side, would there be a particular message on this, and what would you say for that?
Well, I think the genocide needs to be acknowledged and recognized, especially if you want reconciliation, there are a lot of organizations now working towards justice and reconciliation, and they all have to do with extremely serious, horrid situations usually, and one is about genocide. So you have to acknowledge there has been genocide to deal with the situation and do something in a way that you can't help it being repeated elsewhere, but it needs recognition to be dealt with, handled with, talked about, and for the people who suffered from genocide to be also acknowledged as victims.
Hi, this is Asif Rahman. I'm a photographer and I teach photography as well. Welcome, Anne, welcome to the country. We are so honored to have you here. I've been looking at your picture since long now already. I have a very specific question to you from my perspective as a photographer. You have been recording war since long in Vietnam, in Bangladesh, and many other places probably. I'm sure you were not aware of this fact, but my question is like, do you think that there is a specific difference when a woman recording war or a man recording the war? Do you think like when they're articulating or translating the word, do you see any significant difference? Because I see that you have been working with many of your male colleagues. Probably you were not aware that time, but looking at your photographs now from Bangladesh or Vietnam, do you see any difference or any certain perspective from male gaze or female gaze?
I didn't think much about it, and the only time I teamed up with other members of the press was in Vietnam and in Bangladesh. Otherwise, I made it a point to always travel on my own. There was more freedom, and I wanted to cut off any contact with people speaking my language, speaking about places I knew. But being a woman, I was accepted by my peers. I didn't think of myself or of the situation in terms of being a woman or, being a man. In certain situations, when I traveled later on my own, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, also Borneo, I would go into places that needed special permits because there was insurgency. And of course, I didn't get permits, so I would just go up a river in a dugout boat or go up a hill. And I was often stopped by the army, and I had heavy equipment. But being a woman, they probably were less wary about what I was doing, and they just sent me back. And of course, the next day I would find another way to go where I wanted. But had I been a man with the same heavy photographic equipment, I would have gotten myself into trouble. So there were disadvantages, and we're not going to go into them, of course. It would be, little things that happen, of course, along the way. But sometimes it was made things maybe easier. But when I worked with men, I had no problem. And among the population, either, there wasn't any special consideration or anything. I was part of a group, and we were all men and women treated in the same way.
I'm Nasreen, and the very environment of the whole thing tempts me to say, I'm also a freedom fighter, but then what you call, we fought with our voices. I was working for the radio, the government radio at that time. So my question, not a question, is you went to Pangsha and Kushtia and all those places, and you saw all these people, common people getting their training. Did you get to speak any of the people who were on the other side? People who were against this war. Did you get to meet them? Or did you get to talk to them anymore? Thank you.
So there was an interesting question that have you actually met anyone from the other side, meaning, supporting Pakistan or
Never.
Pakistan Army?
Never. They wouldn't have been around. They wouldn't have been... If they had expressed support, I don't think they would have lasted long in front of me.
We talk about humanity. We talk about cruelty, etc. And our Western friends, they talk much more than us. How do you take it when the killers taking shelter in the Western countries years together? How do you take it?
We say that from the Western world there's also talk about human rights and the human rights standards, but the double standard of actually giving shelter to the collaborators or who actually fought against us and being sheltered by the Western countries.
No, I'm not a bill, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious that the double standards of...
But this, I wouldn't be able to comment on this.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, I'm Tareen Hussain from the Daily Ittifaq. And my question to you is, you mentioned that the Samdani Art Foundation heard of you while they were doing their research for 50 years of Bangladesh for their exhibition. My question is, if they had not heard of you and if they had not contacted you, did you have any plans? What were you going to do with the flag that you mentioned? You mentioned that you had kept the flag very safely. And of course, the never before seen photos of Bangabandhu. What were your plans? What were you going to do with these? Did you have any plans to show them to the public or archive them or publish them? Or would Bangladesh have ever seen these photographs if the Samdani Art Foundation had not contacted you?
There were no celebrations, you know, planned for Bangladesh. I wasn't approached for any other ceremony or events. So if it hadn't been for the Samdani Art Foundation, these images would have never been rediscovered and they would still be lying in my archives, however well kept, and the flag would still be in my drawer, and no one would know about these photographs.
I mean, I think it's a food for thought that there may be other photographers like her or other people who have done work, but we don't know about them. I mean, think about Lear Levin and, you know, Tariq Masood and Catherine finding them, and we have, you know, Mukti Khan and all that.
Hassan Saifuddin Chandon, freelance photographer. আমার কোয়েশ্চেনটা হলো গিয়ে যে আমরা উনি প্রথমে যখন জিজ্ঞেস করা হলো ওনাকে যে ওনার বিখ্যাত প্রিয় ছবি কোনটা, যেটার বর্ণনা উনি দিলেন যে একজন মুক্তিযোদ্ধার রাইফেল কাঁধে ফিরছে, হাতে বগলের নিচে তার কাপড় চোপড় একটু পিছনে তাকানো, এই ছবিটার সময়, এই ছবিটা তোলার আগে এবং পরের কোনো ছবি কি এখানে আছে, কিংবা আমরা কিভাবে দেখতে পারবো সেটা?
No, I think that we were moving very fast. I was moving very fast, walking very fast as well. And whatever I saw, I was able to capture, and I wouldn't remember. I can't remember running after something that, you know, vanished before I could capture it. There was so much to capture also that you didn't have the feeling that you were missing something while you were shooting something else. I don't have that feeling. It's a very good question, because sometimes you are indeed shooting, you are in a situation, you say, oh, you haven't been fast enough, I missed this, I missed that. This didn't occur, and I have no recollection of having the feeling I missed something. Because there was so much, it was so rich, it was so intense, that everywhere you turned your camera towards, there was something that you were strong to capture.
তাকে আমি দেখছি 51 বছর পরে, ওখানে পিছনে যে ছবিটা আছে ওইটা আমার মেমোরিতে ছিল, আর স্পষ্ট মনে আছে। ধুলি ধূসরিত ড্রেস, চুলের মধ্যে ধুলো, এইভাবে তো ওনারা চুয়াডাঙ্গাতে এসেছিলেন। সঙ্গে 3 জন বা 4 জন ছিল এরকম মনে করলাম, উনি আমাকে সেটা কারেকশন করে দিয়েছেন। ইয়েস, দেয়ার আর 3 মোর উইথ হার। উনি যখন আসেন সেই সময় আমি ওনাকে দেখি নাই, কিন্তু উনি যখন আমার বাবার সঙ্গে কথা বলছিলেন, হি ওয়াজ ডক্টর আসাবুল হক, চিফ অ্যাডভাইজার অফ South Western Command of Bangladesh Armed Forces at Chuadanga. That was, ওইটা ছিল আমাদের বাইরের একটা ঘর, যেখানে উনি সাধারণত বাইরের মানুষদের সঙ্গে কথা বলতেন। ওই ঘরের ভিতরে এই ছবিটা, আমি ছিলাম ঠিক জানলার পাশে ওনার, উনি সেটা রিকালেক্ট করলেন। তো আমি আই এম সো প্রাউড যে আমি তাকে দেখতে পাবো। গার্ডিয়ানে যখন তার ছবিগুলো দেখি আমি, তখন আমি চমকে গেছি যে এই চেহারাটা তো আমি চিনি নাই, কিন্তু এখানে এই ছবিটা যখন দেখলাম পিছনে যেটা আছে আমি পুরোপুরি রিকালেক্ট করলাম, রিকালেক্টেড ফ্রেশ। তো যাই হোক, আমার যতটুকু মনে পড়ে সেই সময় দর্শনা গেদে দিয়ে কলকাতা থেকে যেসব সাংবাদিক বাংলাদেশে ঢুকতেন, সরাসরি ওনারা আসতেন চুয়াডাঙ্গাতে, সেখান থেকে তারপরে তাদেরকে অন্যান্য জায়গায় যাওয়া হতো। ওনারা গেছিলেন কুষ্টিয়া হয়ে একদম রাজবাড়ি পর্যন্ত। আমার যতটুকু মনে পড়ে 30 তারিখের পরের থেকে চুয়াডাঙ্গাতে বিদেশি সাংবাদিক আসা শুরু হয়, 3 তারিখে চুয়াডাঙ্গার উপরে যখন পাকিস্তান আর্মি এয়ারফোর্স স্ট্রাইফিং করছে, বম্বিং করছে, সেই সময় একটা ফ্রেঞ্চ টিভি টিম ছিল সেখানে। দে রেকর্ডেড ইট লাইভ। ওনাদের সেদিন চলে যাওয়ার কথা, কিন্তু ওই যখন ওয়েন দে অ্যাবাউট টু লিভ তখন ওই স্ট্রাইফিংটা হয়। আমাদের সামনেই ওনারা রেকর্ড করলেন এটা, দৌড়িয়ে গিয়ে, সেটা বলছিলাম। তবে আমি ওই সময় যা দেখেছি, আমার মনে হয় till her coming to Chuadanga on 7th of April, she is the lone lady photographer or newsman who entered Bangladesh. আমি এটা তাকে বললাম। তো সেই দিক দিয়ে আমি মনে করি যে তার বাংলাদেশে আসা এবং বিশেষ করে এই 50 বছর পূর্তি উপলক্ষে এবং পরবর্তী সময় উনি এসেছিলেন বঙ্গবন্ধুর সঙ্গে, তার অনেক ছবি আছে, এগুলো ইতিহাসের অংশ। এবং তাকে আমি বলছি যে you have already become part of our history, our glorious history. Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you. For the bit that he spoke in Bangla, I'll summarize that for you. One was that around that time there was another French TV crew who came, and they actually were able to take footages of, there was a bombing very soon after that you left. So they were there, and he remembers that. And he remembers the time of this photograph, but also, of course, when his father was being photographed, and also that his father was a commander, and you know him. I mean, you have met him at that time. So thank you for that, and thank you for that recollection, and of course, that you're part of our history. He spoke that in English.
আমার নাম হচ্ছে শঙ্কর সাউজাল। শখে ছবি তুলি, কিন্তু আমি মূলত নাটকের লোক, থিয়েটারের লোক। আমাদের 50 বছর স্বাধীনতার উদযাপনে এই মুক্তিযুদ্ধ জাদুঘরে এবং শিল্পকলা একাডেমিতে আপনার ওই মুক্তিযোদ্ধার ছবিটা দেখে এতটাই আবেগ আপ্লুত হয়েছিলাম যে আমি কেঁদেছি। এবং তখন আমার মনে হয়েছিল আমাদের এক শিল্পীর একটা গানের কথা, হয়তো বা ইতিহাসে তোমাদের নাম লেখা হবে না বড় বড় মানুষের ভিড়ে। আমার কাছে মনে হয়েছিল ওটা শুধু ছবি না, ওটা আমাদের সমগ্র মুক্তিযোদ্ধার যে জীবনপণ লড়াইয়ের একটা রিয়েল জেস্চার এই ছবিটা। আজকে এখানে এই বিজয়ের মাসে আপনারা যারা সমবেত হয়েছেন মুক্তিযোদ্ধা, আমি তাদেরকে অভিবাদন জানাই। সেই সাথে আমি মনে করি যে এনিও আমাদের মুক্তিযুদ্ধে একজন মুক্তিযোদ্ধার মতোই কাজ করেছেন। এনিকেও আমি আমার মস্তক অবনত অভিবাদন জানাই। আর একটা কথা, যে ওই মুক্তিযোদ্ধার সাথে কি আপনার কোনো কথা হয়েছিল যার ছবিটি আপনি তুলেছেন? ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
I didn't speak Bangla, so it would have been impossible. And then you're so busy running after pictures that I wasn't a journalist, and even a journalist, English speaking, would not have been able to get.
At that particular time, you wouldn't probably find somebody helping with the interpretation.
Probably the Associated Press member who was with me, he interviewed probably Dr. Ashabul Hagjorder and made him speak. He spoke English. But when you were in the street, you were just walking as fast as the subject you were following, or you were capturing images. It's a matter of a split second to capture an image. So you can't speak, and you are so concentrated on what you focus on, and you're watching your cameras here. You walk with your cameras, with your camera, just in the line of, in the look. So you don't have time to think about talking to people. You take images. That's how he captures photographs, and that needs total concentration.
True.
And very rapid reaction. And
আমি একজন মুক্তিযোদ্ধা, আমার 9 সেক্টরে মেজর জলিল আমার কমান্ডার। আমার কথা হলো যে ফ্রান্সের সাংবাদিকদের কাছে আমার প্রশ্ন, যে তাদের দেশে গভর্নমেন্ট তারা বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমানকে এবং তার ফলোয়ার যারা মুক্তিযুদ্ধ আদর্শের শরীক, তাদেরকে কীভাবে তারা দেখে এবং মূল্যায়ন করে, এইটা আমার প্রশ্ন করতে ভার। আর আমি তার কাছে প্রশ্ন করি যে আমরা গেরিলা, এখন আমি তার কাছে প্রশ্ন রাখতে চাই যে এই গেরিলা যোদ্ধাদের কোনো পিকচার তার কাছে আছে কিনা?
Well, that was 50 years ago now. So when I came back from Bangladesh and I spoke about Bangladesh, people, of course, had heard of the war. The war had been won, and maybe for a couple of years you would speak about Bangabandhu. Then, unfortunately, there was this terrible assassination, mass murder of himself and his family. But then, Bangladesh was no longer, thank God, in that type of news. The fighting was over, independence had been won, so you didn't speak that much about Bangabandhu. Of course, when I talked about my experiences in photography in wars, I would, of course, talk about Bangladesh and Bangabandhu. But after a while, this only came out again, thanks to the Samdani Art Foundation, because of the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of independence and Bangabandhu's,
And especially with the exhibition now on in Paris, there are a lot of local interest in that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It has gotten a lot of press. It has created a lot of interest. And I'm very happy because I think very little is known about your history in Paris, in France. And again, it is a discovery for some, a rediscovery for others. So it's a very good thing. And Musée Guimet is it has the largest Asian art collection in Europe, in the West. So it is a place that attracts a large audience, and the exhibition has attracted a lot of interest.
And even within Europe, Paris is a hub for art and a lot of exhibitions. So there are a lot of, from all over people do come to Paris to, go to exhibitions and galleries. So it does probably attract people from all over Europe as well.
My question is that so much of the history of this country is a story of the fortitude and sacrifices of its women. Does any picture of the woman or any story stand out in your memory?
Well, in one of the photos of the refugees near the train, there's a young woman, a young girl, she must be 12, 13, and her look, there's fear in her eyes, you can see. But not only the young woman, there's a little boy also. So that young girl, but also the little boy struck me, their look with the fear in their eyes.
And again, it was probably a split moment that they were just passing by. They were in the cart moving, right? They were on the move.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. So it was a brief time that you actually saw them and just captured that moment. Yeah. So with that, we'll be concluding now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. And I'm so happy that these images are here, presented in Bangladesh in the Liberation War Museum. And, all this had to happen in a way. It happened that they were rediscovered. It happened that they are shown here. It happened that they are shown in Paris. So it's a sort of the circle, being
It's a full circle.
Absolutely.
And to conclude, I think we can give her a standing ovation.
Oh, no. You are the one.
Thank you, Anne. And with that, we close the evening. You have a very good evening, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. Thank you very much.